On April 28, 1945, one of the most infamous figures of the 20th century met his violent end. Benito Mussolini, the fascist dictator who ruled Italy for over 2 decades, was executed by Italian partisans. His death marked the dramatic fall of a regime and the collapse of fascism in Italy, but it also raised questions, rumors, and mysteries that have persisted for decades. Today, we're going to explore the last days of Mussolini's life and the events leading up to his death. To truly understand Mussolini's death, we need to go back to his rise to power in the early 20th century. Born in 1883 in a small town in Italy, Mussolini's political career would become a reflection of the violent and chaotic times in which he lived. In the aftermath of World War I, Italy was in turmoil. Economic instability, rising unemployment, and widespread disillusionment with the Italian government pushed many towards radical ideologies. Mussolini, originally a socialist, would soon break with his former beliefs and adopt a fascist philosophy, one that promised to bring order to the chaos and restore Italy to its former glory. By 1922, Mussolini had established himself as the leader of the fascist party, and through the March on Rome, he forced King Victor Emmanuel III to appoint him as prime minister. What followed was the establishment of a totalitarian regime that would last until the end of World War II. Mussolini's reign was characterized by aggressive nationalism, militarism, and a commitment to building a new Roman Empire. His ideology of fascism was defined by dictatorial power, suppression of political opposition, and the use of violence to maintain control. However, the winds of war were changing. As World War II raged across Europe, Mussolini's alliance with Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany would ultimately lead to his downfall. In 1940, Mussolini entered Italy into the war on the side of the Axis powers, hoping to expand Italy's influence. However, the war quickly turned against him. By 1943, Italy was facing military defeats, and the population began to lose faith in his leadership. In July 1943, Mussolini was removed from power after the Italian Fascist Grand Council voted to depose him. He was arrested by the king's orders and sent to prison. But Mussolini's story didn't end there. In September 1943, with the help of Nazi Germany, Mussolini was rescued in a daring mission known as the Grand Sasso Raid. The Germans set him up as the puppet leader of the Italian Social Republic, a fascist government in northern Italy. But by this time, Mussolini was a broken man, his influence severely diminished, and Italy was slipping further into chaos. By 1945, as the Allies closed in on Italy from both the north and south, Mussolini's days were numbered. His Italian Social Republic was collapsing, and the fascists were losing the war on all fronts. In April 1945, Mussolini and his mistress, Clara Petaxi, attempted to flee Italy, hoping to reach the safety of Switzerland. They were caught in the northern town of Dongo by Italian partisans, who had been waging a relentless campaign against the fascist regime. On the morning of April 28, 1945, Mussolini and Petaxi were captured near Lake Como. They were taken to the town of Medzegra, where they were held by communist partisans. In a few short hours, the fascist dictator's fate would be sealed. Mussolini was interrogated briefly, but there was little doubt about what was going to happen next. The partisan forces, who had seen the suffering Mussolini had inflicted on Italy, were determined to end his life. Around noon, Mussolini and Petaxi were lined up against a wall by their captors. The partisans, led by the commander of the Garibaldi Brigade, executed Mussolini, firing several rounds into his body. The couple was then hastily thrown into the back of a truck and driven to Milan. Mussolini's body, along with Petaxi's, was displayed in Milan in front of a crowd of onlookers. The images of Mussolini's lifeless body, with his face twisted in death, would become iconic, symbolizing the end of fascism in Italy. The display of Mussolini's body sparked controversy. Was it a rightful end for a dictator who had caused the deaths of thousands? Or was it an act of vengeance by the partisans who had suffered under his regime? Questions about the brutality of his death and the actions of the partisans were widely debated. But for the Italian people, Mussolini's death marked the end of an era. The country was now free from his fascist grip. Yet, the shadow of Mussolini would continue to haunt Italy as the ideological struggle between communism, fascism, and democracy played out in the post-war years. Even after his death, Mussolini's legacy remained a source of controversy. For some, he was a symbol of Italian pride, a leader who attempted to restore Italy to greatness. For others, he was a tyrant who allied with Nazi Germany, causing immense suffering and destruction. In the decades following his death, Mussolini became an object of fascination for historians, filmmakers, and even far-right groups who continue to view him as a hero. But for most Italians, his death was the closure to a painful chapter in their history. In the end, Benito Mussolini's death was the culmination of years of war, betrayal, and defeat. His rise to power had been swift, but his fall was even swifter. The man who once promised to make Italy great again was ultimately shot by a group of men who believed he had caused irreparable harm to their country. His death was not just the end of a dictator, but the final chapter in the story of fascism in Italy. Thank you for joining us as we explored the final days of Benito Mussolini. If you found this story fascinating, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated with more historical explorations. Until next time, stay curious.